to talk about coaches' salaries, and I'm going to get nerdy about this too. And I want you to keep in mind, here's the big takeaway from this. There are coaches in NCAA football that are absolutely millionaires, and they're coaching athletes who make zero. And that becomes an issue. We saw the video on it, and that's definitely an issue. If, as you'll see here, Nick Saban's making $9.3 million a year and his athletes are making zero, does that create a problem? Well, let's take a look at some of these coaches' salaries, and then we'll Another financial that I find absolutely fascinating is coaches' salaries in NCAA Division I football. In the 2020 season, and this was updated as of November 17, 2020. So it's current as of this recording, which is February 2021. Here we have all the college football coaches ranked by salary. And if you follow college football, you will probably not be surprised to see Nick Saban at the top. His total compensation is $9.3 million annually. Interesting. He's got a contract that if, for instance, the school wants to fire him before his contract's up, they have a buyout clause for $36.8 million. So Saban's sitting pretty comfortably moving forward. And if you follow college football, you probably have an idea of all of these coaches. You've got Ed Orgeron at LSU making close to $9 million a year. Dabo Swinney at Clemson, who's won a few national titles, making $8.3 million a year. Obviously, as of this recording, Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide team beat Ohio State in the championship game, so maybe that's money well spent. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan makes $8 million a year. I'm sure my Michigan haters will clearly tell me that that's not money well spent. You've got Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, Kirby Smart at Georgia, so on and so forth. And here we have Ohio State's. We've been talking a lot of Ohio State, but here is Ryan Day, Ohio State's coach, making $5.6 million a year. But here, just like the school budgets, let's take a look. If we flip this total pay around, so these people are all competing in a fairly level playing field. It's not a level playing field at all. I guess that's my point. But they're all Division I schools. If you flip this over, there are schools that aren't reporting what their head coach is making, and I'm not sure why that is. But here we have our first reported salary, Coastal Carolina, Jamie Chadwell. I don't know anything about Jamie. His salary is $319,000. Sean Lewis is actually a very well-respected coach and has done a really nice job at Kent State. Here he is, vastly underpaid at $433,000 a year relative to other coaches. But we see actually the MAC is very well represented at the bottom of this coaching salary. You've got Ball State that's in the MAC, Akron U that's in the MAC, Eastern Michigan that's in the MAC, Bowling Green is down here, Miami of Ohio, OU, Northern Illinois, all MAC schools, Buffalo, another MAC school. So all the local universities are very low on the pay scale. Obviously, Cleveland State doesn't have a football team. But there's a huge disparity there from Nick Saban making $9.3 million to these guys down here making less than $500,000. And again, that looks like great money to me, which it is. But there, in terms of equity and in terms of competitive balance, it's totally skewed, isn't it? Before we dive into college football, I'd like to talk about college athletics in general. It is big money all around. March Madness, when it happens, is a billion-dollar business that brings in over $1 billion in broadcasting rights. Over $100 million are gambled on the tournament in office pools and sports books all across the world. In college football, there are 25 bowl games. There's 119 Division I programs. They each give 85 scholarships. This is football now. There are 327 Division I basketball teams. And then there's 3,000 other schools competing in collegiate athletics at the Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior college. There's lots of athletics going on in colleges across America, but football is the heart of it all. But it wasn't always the case. As a matter of fact, the very first sport that really became popular at the collegiate level was rowing. We've talked about rowing before, and rowing just has a long history, particularly in college athletics. Another early popular college sport was track and field. And then there was also baseball. And baseball is very interesting. You know what? I find this pretty fascinating. The first collegiate baseball game ever played was in 1859. It was between Amherst and Williams colleges in Massachusetts, and the score was 73-32. That's a very long baseball game. If you think baseball's long now, boy, a 73-32 game must have been just excruciatingly long. Here's a picture of them reenacting. I guess they do that between these two colleges to commemorate the very first collegiate baseball game. I love some of these photos. Rowing was the first major intercollegiate sport. Here's a rowing team. I don't know who they are, but they look pretty sharp, don't they? Here's another rowing team. They decided to scrap the shirts for this photo. They've won a big cup. I don't know who they are, but again, sharp-looking group there, right? So baseball was the most popular game on campus until football came along, because, frankly, baseball was always way more popular than football until fairly recently. In the last 40 or 50 years, baseball was king in this country. But as a collegiate sport, it never really caught on because of the seasons. Baseball's a summer sport. Here in Ohio, spring's terrible. And if you're a spring athlete, you know exactly what I mean. Spring sports are just miserable till about May, and then they're gorgeous. But colleges get out at the beginning of May. So by the time the weather clears up enough for baseball to be enjoyable, the students have gone home for the summer. So there's no spectators, or very few. There's not a lot of interest, and it just never became a big-time collegiate sport. There's another factor as well. Baseball has the minor league system, and often the best players in baseball go straight to professional baseball right out of high school. So a lot of times the best players are not going to college at all. And there's also an international component nowadays. So early college sports, a lot like early colonial sports, were mostly recreational. They were organized by students with little influence by faculty or school administrators. They were for the students to have fun, to blow off some steam. Originally, college teams were student financed and organized by an experienced student captain. Those captains were elected by their teammates. They coached the team, they arranged the schedules, they ran the practices, they led during games. There was really no professional coaches. There was very little insight from the university. The university really didn't even care about these clubs. They were essentially sports clubs. Even though they were competing for the university, they don't have all the apparatus that collegiate sports have now. Here's a nice looking football team, by the way. They look like they're going to prison. And I put this program together, but I forget what school this was. But there's no coach in the picture because there wasn't a coach. The coach was usually the most senior player elected by the other players, and they just organized everything, and they took that responsibility on. And when they graduated, then you had to pick somebody new. And every year you're getting a new team manager or coach, and that was okay. It was a low stress situation. This was supposed to be for fun. Now, they had practices and they worked hard and everything like that, but there was no money involved here. There's almost zero money. They needed traveling expense fees and maybe, uniforms and stuff like that. But other than that, it's a very low budget affair. Now, I bring this up because I think it's a lot like club sports today at the collegiate level. For those of you who are going to college or intend to go to college after high school, there is an opportunity to play club sports, recreational sports. There's actually a couple different options. Most universities have intramural sports, which would be absolutely open to everybody, and you play games with other students at your university. And they have all kinds of programs, flag football, soccer, you name it. But then they also have club sports, which were very, very much like these early collegiate sports. They are associated with the university, but the university has very little oversight. You have a team manager who runs everything. They do compete under the school's logo, but it's really not something that the university is very involved in. I have a photograph here of the Kent State University dodgeball club. You could go play club dodgeball. And this is not intramural. They're not playing other Kent State students. They are traveling. They're traveling to other universities and playing. I've witnessed a dodgeball tournament being held at Kent State, and there were teams. Ohio State was there, and all these different programs. Kentucky was there, from all over the area showed up to play a dodgeball tournament. These are not scholarship athletes. They are doing it for fun. They have practices, but it's way less formal. Let me show you a list of clubs. I'm not obsessed with Ohio State, I promise you, but it's just the largest university in Ohio and one of the largest universities in the world. And so their selection would be much more dynamic. Let's take a look at the club selection if you were to go to a place like Ohio State. Many schools have lots of clubs. And then I'm going to show you a video of what I think is the most unique sport being played on campuses today. It gives you a taste of what these early college sports were all about. It was about having fun, and it was about socializing with other people on campus and having a little bit of competition and fitness thrown in for good measure. Here is the Office of Student Life Recreational Sports at Ohio State, the Ohio State. And I'll just read a little bit to you just because it gives us an idea of what the original intent of collegiate sports were. Sports clubs are designed to serve individual interests in different sports and recreational activities. These teams are not NCAA affiliated. Participation in the program enhances and promotes the element of good sportsmanship, the development of skills, the well-being derived from physical activity, and the social aspect within each sport. If competition is desired, opportunities exist in varying degrees within individual clubs. That's what the intent of college sports were originally. It wasn't to create revenue or exposure for the university, not at all. But that's what it evolved into. Let's take a look at some of these sport clubs. I think you're going to be fascinated, maybe I am, by just the diversity of them. Again, this is a huge university, one of the biggest in the world, and they're going to have a lot more options than some other places. But you're going to find this at every university that people attend. So you have an Aikido club, which Aikido is Japanese sword martial art, I believe. You have the all-girl cheer club, the alpine ski and board club, the archery club, the badminton club, the baseball club, not to be confused with their baseball team, which is an NCAA-affiliated team. Those are scholarship athletes that are being supported financially by the university. This is a baseball club. You've got men's basketball club, once again, not the men's basketball team, but this is the club. But it's not like intramural, though. The men's basketball club plays the men's basketball club at Kent State or Akron U or Cleveland State, potentially. They travel, but they are not the men's basketball team that plays to the large audiences and would play in the NCAA tournament. You've got the women's basketball club. It's the same deal. You got a bowling club, a boxing club, crew, cricket club, cycling, dance sport club, dance team at OSU. Now, the dance team at OSU does probably perform at their large events. For instance, their basketball team. They've got a dodgeball club. They have a Dragon Phoenix Wushu club. Don't know what that is. The Hunt Seat Equestrian Club, the Western Equestrian Club, the Fencing Club, field hockey. Now, again, fencing club, don't get confused. They have an NCAA fencing team as well. They've got a field hockey team as well. These are the clubs, not the NCAA teams. Figure skating club, a football club, tackle football. They've got a club. They've got a golf club, gymnastics club, men's ice hockey club, women's ice hockey club, all of which have their own NCAA teams. They've got a judo club, a jiu-jitsu club, a men's lacrosse club, a women's lacrosse club, a paintball club, a powerlifting club, racquetball club, roller hockey club, men's rugby club, women's rugby club, sailing club, Shotokan karate club, it's a Kung Fu Club. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry. Men's soccer club, women's soccer club, softball club, squash club, club swimming, taekwondo club, Tang Sudo Club, Team Handball Club, Tennis Club, Triathlon Club, Twirl Club, like baton twirling, Men's Ultimate Disc Club, a Women's Ultimate Disc Club, Women's Volleyball Club, Men's Volleyball Club, Men's Water Polo Club, Women's Water Polo Club, Water Ski Club. These are all club sports. They compete against students from other universities. Depending on the club, there's some exclusivity here. Not everyone can probably be on the men's volleyball club. You have to probably do a tryout, and there's probably cuts, and it's probably a very competitive team. It's just not affiliated with the university in the same way that an NCAA sport would be. Some of these clubs probably take anybody who wants to participate. I don't know. It probably depends on the club. But I thought you'd find that interesting.
Quidditch is a sport invented by J.K. Rowling in the famous book series, Harry Potter.
I found out we didn't have a team. I was just kind of shocked. So I decided right then and there that I had to start one.
Schools like NYU, Harvard, Texas A&M, and UCLA all have teams.
The chasers take the quaffle, which is the main ball, and get it through the hoops. The beater's job is to hit the chasers with the bludgers, which makes the chaser be out of play for a short amount of time. The keepers are goalies. The seeker's job is to catch the snitch, and the seekers have to get the tennis ball without actually touching the snitch runner.
The seekers have to go look for me out on campus, and then if they don't find me in that allotted time, then I come back to the field and battle it out on the pitch itself.
That was crazy!
Have to have a sense of humor to play Quidditch. I mean, you can't take yourself too seriously if you're running around on a broomstick.
There are two things that appeal to people. The first is the athleticism of it. The other side is just the kind of fantasticalness of it. It's the Harry Potter aspect, really.
It's not just nerds running around on broomsticks. It's people are actually fighting to win.
You get South Campus, North Campus, white, brown, black. It's as diverse as it comes.
Since it is Quidditch, we don't fly, but you have to have a broom between your legs at all times. That's the silliest part of the game. It's the most ridiculous, but it's also the hardest.
The brooms don't fly, so you kind of have to power them with your own legs. Sometimes you get a lot of stares from other people who are kind of like, what is that they're doing? It looks like they're sitting there in Harry Potter land or something.
It's just really a fun way to relax and have fun, especially if you're in the middle of midterms. Yes, I have one tomorrow at 8 a.m.
If you can get a group of people to come together around this book series and you can bring a sport into that and give them an opportunity to have some school spirit, there's no stopping it. Fantasy becoming a reality does not happen nearly as often as it should.
It says Bruin Quidditch on the front and it says 1919 for the year the school was founded. And then on the back it says our team is brewing up some Felix Felicis, which is a potion from the Harry Potter universe.
I mean, you go to a party and you tell people you play Quidditch, you get all the girls right off the bat. Who doesn't want to be with a Quidditch player? It's Quidditch.
I couldn't imagine my time here without it. I don't know what I would be doing. I guess homework, but that wouldn't be nearly as fun.